There's Nick and Sam, taking you to Jungle Land. Bengals pride, it fills the air. Every week we're always there. Touchdowns, tackles, all the plays. Bengals roaring every way. Stories, news, and game recaps. Jungle Juice, we bridge those gaps. Welcome to the Jungle Juice. Nick and Sam, let's break it loose. Cincinnati, hear our call. Bengals fans, unite us all.
Welcome in to this week's edition of the Jungle Juice podcast. I'm Sam Gormley. He's Mick Nelson. Mick, how you doing? You almost were dying at this time last week. Am I correct?
I was. Yeah. We live to see another day.
Much to the chagrin of some and the celebration of others.
Much to the chagrin of many, many, many people. And to the benefit of me.
When Alex Schubert heard that, we were canceling because you were sick, I think he was hoping that you'd gone full Walter White. But sadly, that wasn't the case.
I mean,
you're at least happy with me dropping in a Breaking Bad reference, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
There was a moment when I was talking to you last week, you just had a really nasty cold. And it sounded like you might have had a full Walter White going on with you. Like you sounded
it really did. It wasn't good.
And yet you live to tell the tale. You live to tell the tale. They can't take you out that easily, can they? They can't. I guess that we could have just dropped in the what if Mick would have had a Walter White like instance, because that ties right into our show today. We're gonna have a little bit of fun with this, right? You want to start off with that? What if you would have been?
What if I had stage 3A lung cancer?
What a conversation to have. I'm sure your wife would love us to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Right? But on today's show, we are going to do, I've got a list here of some. It's just and then comment section, feel free to chime in if you have any as well. And Mick, you can throw in some if you have as well. I've just got a list here of some Bengals what-ifs. And what we're going to do today is I've got just these questions. And we're just going to talk about what if a moment in Bengals history. And listen, for the most part on these are all relatively recent. Like a couple of them that we could have mentioned, we weren't alive for. So it's hard for us to really discuss some of those older moments in Cincinnati Bengals history, especially when you go to, things like Stanley Wilson, who relapsed the night before Super Bowl 23 against the Niners, misses the game, Bengals lose by 4. He was a big part of the offense. It's tough for us to talk about that because we weren't alive. So because of that, we are going to primarily go heavy on recent Bengals ones. But if you have one in the comments section, I think, Mick, what we'll do is if you have one, drop it in there and we'll come back to it a little bit later on in the show and we'll just drop in some of your other ones. But we invite you to follow us on our social media channels, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. We're also on your favorite podcasting platform as well. Really quick, I do want to at least hit one of the headlines of the week. There's not a lot, which honestly is not a bad thing right now, as far as it's nice not having any news come out of camp, like no injuries or anything like that, knock on wood. But the Ring of Honor ballots for season ticket holders are turned in this week. I voted for us, Mick, last week, and we voted for Lamar Parrish was your vote, and Dave Lapham was mine. Really, I think that's a collective discussion. That was where our votes last year. It's not changing, and I think both those guys, I hope they both get in.
Favorites this year. Yeah, and I think they're the favorites. I mean, is anybody even close to the Vulture, maybe?
Yeah, there's a lot of different, depending on what age of Bengals fans you're in. And then I'm fascinated to see, they made the announcement too, when they released the ballot, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago, they said that they're going to be making some changes, which I'm intrigued as to what that could mean to the Ring of Honor. Are they going to do it every other year? Are they going to go to one a year? I don't know. But did you, also though, they announced, go on.
I was going to say, I feel like it's going to go to like one a year, or they're going to start adding more recent Bengals to the list here at some point.
Were you surprised? Oh, sorry. Finish your point. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, were you surprised at the game selection for the Ring of Honor game?
Jets game?
Yeah.
I mean, I at this point, like, there's nobody on the Ring of Honor list I'm like excited. Like after Chad and Boomer got in, I feel like, I mean, I was didn't really care about who else got in. Like, it's kind of a fine because I didn't watch any of these other guys play. I don't think any of these guys, I really got to witness them firsthand. So like, and I feel like if a Geno or an AJ Green were on the ballot, which they will be eventually, maybe I'd have a little more invested into it. Now Lamar Parrish is one of the greatest Bengals of all time and deserves to be in there.
And Dave Lapham deserves to be in for being
to an extent with Lapham, because he's been the brand ambassador of the team.
And I think it would mean as much to him as it would mean to anybody.
Yeah, it'd probably mean more to him, honestly.
He deserves to have his name up there.
Yeah, and I feel like you could probably put a little more sentiment on there just because of what your profession is.
Yeah,
what you
broadcasting. It's not an easy thing, and he's really, really good at it. Him and Dan have done a great job as the voices of the Bengals. And you can hear the excitement and the love in Dave Lapham's broadcast. He's a fan when he gets up there, and that's what makes it fun. And I think that's why people love him so much. And I hope he gets that moment this year. And if not this year, it sure as heck better be next year, because that man deserves to get his flowers and to be up in the Bengals Ring of Honor.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go into some Bengals what-ifs. Now, Mick, I'm going to be honest. We're going to get a little depressing tonight because a bunch of these are going to be some depressing moments. But hey, that's kind of what the what-ifs are. And, it's an early June Wednesday. It's sunny outside, so what better time than to start bringing in some storm clouds? Are you ready?
Yeah.
I think we got to start with the biggest one.
Go ahead.
Start with the biggest storm cloud. What if Carson Palmer doesn't get hurt in the 2005 wildcard game?
I don't think they would have gone far.
I think they win that game. Now, they would have then played
New England.
Gosh, I'm now even trying
or
to
Denver.
think.
New England or Denver?
It was, let's see. I'm going to have to pull that up because that would have been, so they would have played, let's see, because they were the 3 seed. They would have gone to Denver. They would have gone to Denver, and then you would have had New England at Indy in that game.
That would have been something. So if they ended up playing Indy, there was no way they were going to beat Indy, because I don't think that defense would have been able to handle Manning.
They would have played Denver.
Well, they would have played Indy eventually.
Yeah, but I don't think they would have gotten past Denver.
You don't think they would have gotten past Denver either?
No, I think the road game with that. Now I'm even trying to think. Was that Kyle Orton? Was that
that was
Jake Plummer. That was Jake Plummer. Yep.
Season.
Yep, Jake Plummer. Looking at that, they had been playing really well too. The Broncos that year, 13-3. Yeah, I think they would have. I mean, and they ended up beating Brady that night by 2 touchdowns in the divisional game.
Yeah.
So I think they lose in the divisional round, but I do think they beat that. But I'm also fascinated if that doesn't happen. What does 06, 07, like the next couple of years look like? Because I know Palmer had the next couple of injuries, but how much would the perception of him have changed with the whole retirement thing if he would have gotten a playoff win?
Well, the playoff drought didn't become such a drought, I feel until
Dalton.
5 years into Dalton losing, or the Dalton era Bengals losing playoff games 5 years in a row. Like, I don't think the drought thing, because I feel like the Bengals probably weren't the longest drought at that time. I don't believe they would have been.
Was it the Lions?
15-year playoff drought. The Bills. The Bills?
I don't know.
Or the Lions.
But still.
One of the two. So it wasn't the longest active playoff drought at that point in time. I don't believe it was. I could be wrong. I don't think it was though. Now, how would that have changed the perception of Carson Palmer? I don't think it would have
Here's a
changed
question.
that much.
Here's a question for you. Let's say he doesn't get hurt. Bengals win that playoff game. Everything still happens the same. Does Carson Palmer then have a chance to make it in the Ring of Honor?
Sure.
Because I don't know.
I mean, I don't see why it wouldn't.
Because I don't know that Carson Palmer has a chance to get in now.
I mean, I don't think he does now, but also, like, I'm also of the opinion that, like, I thought Carson was pretty good. Like, I thought he was a top 10 quarterback in the league. I don't know why people put him in the top 5 in that era.
He wasn't Joe Burrow.
He wasn't. Joe Burrow's been by far the best quarterback, at least that we've watched out of the 3 between Carson, Andy, and Joe. Carson had, a really good 2005 season. And I'm looking at the gradings. It's decent. It's not great. I mean, he never graded above 80 in a season with the Bengals. Joe Burrow has been grading in the 90s pretty much every season that he's played, other than his rookie year. And then 2024 or 2023 wasn't great because of the calf injury. That brought it down. So, I mean, I don't know how much that would have changed things if he didn't get hurt. And then also,
I'm more playing devil's advocate here with you because I'm not sure that I necessarily disagree with you. But if we're talking what ifs in Bengals history, that's definitely up there as far. And this is not in any particular.
Also, anybody watching, if you have a what if that you want us to talk about, put it in the comment section because this is an open discussion of hypotheticals here.
And if I don't pull it up right away, it means that it's probably already on the list that I've created, and we might come back to it a little bit later on. You ready for the next one?
I just want to end with this one thing. There were better, and I'm not talking about the 21 and 22 seasons. There were better teams during the Dalton era that I think could have made the Super Bowl than that 05 Bengals team.
Okay, next one. You know what? We'll start. I don't know if these two need to be combined, but let's start a little depressing, and then we're gonna get real depressing. Okay.
Okay.
Little depressing. 2015. What if Andy Dalton doesn't break his thumb?
I think they beat the Steelers. I mean, they almost beat them with AJ, right? Like they.
Well, I mean, you got to think though that. I mean, would they have even played them?
Would they have even played? I think that they would have. I think they would have been stuck with the 3 seed even with Dalton in, because you still had to play the Broncos. And even though that game went down to the wire with AJ McCarron playing, I don't know if Dalton really would have made much of a difference in that game. That defense for the Broncos was so damn good that year. It's one of the best defenses I've ever seen.
Here's the question though for you is, Bengals might win that game. They might beat the Steelers that night, which would then have had them playing the Jets. And actually, a win that night. Yeah, because the Jets were the. Oh wait, no. Sorry. Yes, because the Jets would have had a better record than the Steelers that year because they were both 10-6, and the Steelers via the tiebreaker got in. But also, all 3 of those teams, Broncos, Patriots, Bengals, were all 12-4. So if the Bengals would have won that game, they'd have been the 1 seed.
Yeah, potentially. Yeah. Now, I think that would be a foregone conclusion that they would have beaten Pittsburgh in that week, 14-15 game where Andy ended up breaking his thumb. But you got to remember the offense didn't let 42 points get scored on them. Yeah, that was a defensive meltdown, especially late in the game.
33. Yeah.
Was one of them a pick six?
33-20 was the final score of that game.
Oh, I thought it was like 42-21.
No. 33-20. And the injury, though, happened in the first quarter. So that's kind of the question. They were losing 7-0. And my memory's right, they were in the red zone, right? Like, wasn't it and goal?
I don't
like.
Remember.
Wasn't it closer to the end? No, when the Dalton got hurt. When Dalton got hurt. Oh,
yes, they were in the red zone. They were in the red zone for that drive. They were.
And if only he didn't tackle. Okay, the next one. What if Jeremy Hill doesn't fumble?
Oh, that game would have been won. That game would have been won. They would have played the Patriots. The Patriots weren't. I don't think the Patriots were that great that year. I mean, obviously they lost to the Broncos and in a shell. They lost to the shell of Peyton Manning and a killer Broncos defense in the conference championship game. I think the Bengals would have given the Patriots a really good game. I think that they potentially could have won. Like, when I say there were better teams that we've seen than that 2005 Bengals team that would have made the Super Bowl, 2015 is one of those teams because of how good the Bengals defense was that year.
And like Tyler says, Andy Dalton was a legit MVP candidate that year.
It was by far his best graded season as well.
He was outstanding that season. And I know when we talk about that infamous night, and I don't really want to talk about it that much because I'm gonna start crying probably. But Nick, we were there.
So we parked at the levee.
Oh, why did we do that? There has never been a more depressing walk in my entire life.
It started raining. It was cold.
We
walked all the way back to the levee.
I thought we were just gonna go hand in hand and just swan dive off the Purple People Bridge that night. And I think probably some would have joined us because it was so just depressing, that walk. But a lot of people,
bungled thing I have ever seen happen.
Because some people will blame Vontaze and Adam Jones in that moment, and listen, they are not blameless by any stretch. But
I'd say Pac-Man's blameless. Pac-Man's definitely blameless in that. Like, I would be losing it if a coach were on the field during that shit.
Yeah, Joey Porter. Yeah, but you also have to think, why did the Bengals have the ball when Jeremy Hill could have not fumbled the ball and run it out? Because Vontaze Burfict had a huge interception.
He did
in that game. So it's like it's. I'm getting sad now. Can we move on? I can't talk about this anymore. That game. Gosh, I've never went back and rewatched it. I don't know that I ever would be able to. But my goodness, that is, I think, in that era, in the Marvin Lewis era, your two big what ifs are Jeremy Hill and Carson Palmer. In those two, in the Marvin Lewis era,
meltdown against the Chargers. That's another one. 2013. That was the other team that I think could have made the Super Bowl that year, because again, killer defense, offense really found their stride that year. That was Andy's best season up until when 2015 happened. But yeah, that's 2013 was a great season by all means. I mean, 11-5, won the division. You had a game against a very beatable Chargers team, and you went out and played like absolute garbage. That was
an embarrassing game. I remember watching
terrible.
That with you.
Were you with me when we watched that?
Yeah, we were beefs, right?
We were. And then I went home and was sad.
I remember that day because I had been working at the restaurant right there by Beeps, and my boss let me out early. Cut me off work early so I could go watch the game. And I think after it happened, I sent him a text message like, "Don't you ever let me do that again. Like, why would you let me do that? You're making me depressed by giving me that moment." But I agree with T-Brick. He says the worst spring from elation to total shock. The fumble was so unbelievable. I've always described it as to people who have never experienced a moment like that. To me, one of the greatest joys in life is a fresh, hot and ready Krispy Kreme donut. I don't know the last time you had one of them, Mick. That is I'm talking they just
been a while.
Off the conveyor belt and it starts melting in your mouth. The way I described that moment is that I had one of those fresh, hot Krispy Kreme donuts that came off the conveyor belt. I took it and I was just getting ready to take a bite and have a little slice of heaven. And then somebody stole it from me and ate it in front of me and laughed in my face. Mm-hmm. And I had to watch that happen. That's kind of how that was like, and just absolutely depressing. What if the Bengals don't hire Zach Taylor? So do you want to know the list of who they interviewed? I always love this.
Because we all thought it was going to be Vance Joseph, I think. Because a lot of us thought it was going to be Vance Joseph instead.
Okay, so the Bengals, not counting Zach Taylor, interviewed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other people. So Vance Joseph was one. Can you name the other 6?
Dirk Cutter?
No.
Are you sure?
At least not when I went and looked on the source that I had earlier.
Darren Simmons was one of them.
He was
just as a
mm-hmm.
as a formality, I guess. Was it Gunther?
Nope.
My God. Oh, give me some hints here.
You have a lot of Bengals connections. A lot of Bengals connections, including on that staff, maybe.
On that staff.
Hugh Jackson.
Oh, yeah. Hugh.
Bill Lazor.
Oh, God.
Eric Bieniemy. Remember?
Okay. Yeah.
Shane Waldron.
I remember Shane Waldron. That would have been terrible.
And here is maybe the one that at least now makes you go, Todd Monken.
It was okay. I was thinking Dirk Cutter, but no, it was Todd Monken. Oh, man. If they had Todd Monken, damn.
Now, but that is a question.
We probably wouldn't have Joe Burrow if we didn't have if we had Todd Monken running the show.
So is that the way you want to go with this? If they didn't hire Zach Taylor, that we wouldn't have Joe Burrow?
It depends on who the coach would be. I don't think Zach Taylor was the only coach that could have brought that team to 2-14. I think most of them probably could have. Vance Joseph definitely would have gotten them to 2-14. Mm-hmm. Who else is there?
Hugh Jackson.
Hugh Jackson would have been the only coach to have 2 0-16 seasons and a 1-15 season. Bill Lazor, that wouldn't have worked out very well either.
Eric Bieniemy is one of the more fascinating guys. Like how and now he's unemployed now.
He's a running backs coach for the Bears.
Is that where he is now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, talk about a guy that is just completely fallen off the. I love that the running backs coach of the Bears too.
I saw a video of him working with Roschon Johnson, or I think it was with Roschon Johnson the other day, and I was like, oh, that's where he is.
Because you know me, I've always been a Zach Taylor guy. Like, I think he's done a really good job for the Bengals. Is he perfect? No. But like when you listen to some of these other names, now this also could be more of an indictment on the front office for who they interviewed.
Yes, I think that's more
because
it's more the case than anything.
The only other coach that turned them down. So one coach turned them down to interview.
McDaniels.
Yes.
Yeah.
Think you probably
thank you, Josh McDaniels, for turning that job down.
You probably caught a break there. But now, I mean, you just look the other coaches that were hired that year. The Cardinals hired
Cliff Kingsbury. Matt LaFleur was also hired.
Okay, here let's just go in order here.
Okay.
Browns hired
Stefanski.
Nope.
Oh.
You're a year early.
Oh, Freddie. Oh God. Yeah, no.
Broncos, who'd they hire?
Vance. No.
Nope.
Oh, Vic Fangio.
Mm-hmm. There you go. You mentioned Matt LaFleur. Bucks.
Oh, Bruce Arians.
Yep. Jets.
Todd Haley. They're not Todd Haley. Adam Gase.
Adam Gase. There you go. And then the Dolphins hired.
I'm gonna have a stroke.
This
Dolphins hire.
This is one of Zach Taylor's biggest enemies.
I'm blanking. Who is it?
Brian Flores.
Oh, it's Flo.
Brian Flores.
So the Bengals wouldn't have. That's another thing. The Bengals wouldn't have gone with the defensive coach. I don't think. I think that they I remember them making a priority. Hey, we were tired of having the offensive coordinator turnover that they've had during the Dalton years. They wanted a guy that could be the play caller and the head coach at the same time. So, I mean, really the best. I mean, if they had LaFleur, we're probably in just as good of a situation, I think, as you are with Zach, maybe even better. But the other guys, I think Cliff runs a really good offense. I don't think he's a good CEO of a team. I think that's why he got fired in Arizona. Even though I think that he kind of got screwed because of, the Kyler Murray injury. And I don't think they did a good job of building that roster for him either. Adam Gase, dog shit.
Can you just imagine that press conference?
Well, remember
the press conference he had?
You know who the guy that we really wanted just because he had a great name and also
No,
he had
this was all you. This was all
had a
you.
decent
I was
resume?
never really a big
You
Jim
didn't
Bob Cooter fan.
You didn't like Jim Bob Cooter?
No, I did.
Is
You
he,
just wanted him because you
is
just
it O-
wanted
is
your
it
coach to be
OC
Jim
right
Bob.
now?
I have
And his
no
last
idea.
name's also Cooter.
Yeah. How old are you?
12.
Jim Bob Cooter is the offensive coordinator of the
The
Colts.
Colts. Oh.
Of the Colts, he has been there now for a couple of years. Next one. What if Joe Burrow doesn't tear his ACL in 2020?
You wouldn't have Jamar Chase on your team. Because that schedule was supposed to be pretty friendly towards the end of the year. I remember they subbing.
So you want to know the schedule?
Yes.
Okay. So he gets hurt week 11. Week 12, they lose by 2 at home against the Giants.
That would have been a win for Joe.
Presumably, there's a win. So there is your third win of the season. Week 13, they lose 19-7 at the Dolphins.
That would have been a win. Because
think
were the Dolphins pretty bad that year? Or they weren't great.
Yeah, they were not great.
Well, obviously, they
because they were. Yeah, that was the tank for Tua Bowl. Remember, at the time,
Well,
everybody thought it was.
Because Tua would have been a rookie that year.
This is. Oh yeah, yep. Good point. You're right. Tank for Tua was the year before. Okay.
But that would have been the tank for Chase Bowl, probably.
Yes. Week 14, they got their brains beat in by Andy Dalton and the Dallas Cowboys. You're gonna lose
that would have
one,
been
probably.
a win.
Yeah. They lost 30-7.
Yeah, I still think that would have been a win.
Wow. Okay.
The Cowboys weren't good that year either. That Cowboys team went like 5-11.
Yeah. I love looking at the attendances of these games too. Hilarious. Like that Cowboys game had 10,000 people in attendance.
Well, you got to remember this.
I know. I know. It's just more.
Year.
It's more just funny. Week 15. The downside is that we wouldn't have gotten this game because there is
the Ryan Finley game.
The Ryan Finley game is one of like my favorite Bengals regular season games in my life.
Yeah,
just amazing. But also, you had one of the more memorable plays of the. Yeah, that was the Andy Dalton revenge game. Tyler says for cutting him on his birthday or for benching him on his birthday.
Oh yeah.
That's still the funniest thing. But you had one of the more impactful moments of the Von Bell hit on Doo Smith-Schuster.
Yeah. After he said he was going to do that too.
Yeah. Does any of that happen? Like, so I mean, and then you look at this. They beat the Texans, and then they lose to the Ravens. That was a bad game.
So I mean, I think there's 5 wins. There's probably
so
5 wins.
You would have had them almost knocking on the door of a playoff spot, like at least in the. You'd have been in the vicinity.
They'd be picking in the low teens. They'd be picking like 12th or 13th in the draft, I think.
So then you got to look at the 2021 NFL draft and see who was even on the board then. If let's just say they pick 11th that year, or let's see. So the Patriots finished 7-9. So whatever the Patriots picked, we'll just say that's where the Bengals picked instead. So the Patriots picked 15th that year. So the players that would have been on the board at 15. Oh God, Nick. Oh God.
Mac Jones.
The Cardinals took Zaven Collins. The Raiders took Alex Leatherwood, Jalen Phillips to the Dolphins, Jamin Davis to Washington, Kadarius Toney to the Giants, Kwity Paye to the Colts. Could we have had the Bengals drafting Kadarius Toney then if Joe Burrow doesn't tear his ACL?
I don't think they would have gone with Kadarius Toney.
But it's at least.
But the rest of this wide receiver class is pretty bad. Like Rashad Bateman.
Elijah Moore.
I would take Bateman over Moore in that case. Terrace Marshall Jr., you could have just gotten the other LSU wide receiver.
Yeah, they're the same player, right?
Oh, Amon-Ra, but also Amon-Ra didn't get selected until the 4th round. Nico Collins, I forgot Nico Collins was in this draft. They could have gotten him for a 2nd round, and then they could have gone tackle instead. You would have seen them go let's say Christian Darrisaw and and Nico Collins, that wouldn't have been bad. But we wouldn't have Jamar.
How about let's continue that next question. Let's say that the previous scenario still happens, but what was the discussion we were all having prior to the 2021 draft? Chase versus Sewell.
Chase or Sewell.
What if they take Sewell? They're not in the Super Bowl.
No, they're not even in the playoffs. They pick Sewell.
Zach Taylor is not the head coach.
Probably not. I could agree with that.
It's it is amazing how so many and if they would have drafted Sewell, I don't think it would have been one of those decisions that I don't think anybody could have necessarily said was a bad one. Because I think all of the quote unquote pundits were saying that they should have, and they said that it was a crime that they would take Jamar Chase, and then Jamar Chase is arguably the best receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, and I don't know if all the pundits would have said that. I think, Jamar Chase was the heavy favorite. I think by the time that the draft rolled around, that he was going to be the one selected. They're definitely not making the playoffs. Zach probably, maybe 50-50 is out of a job. And you're doing this whole thing again in 2022. New head coach. Trying to get it to work out.
And who knows what the next couple of years look like. It's just amazing how all of these little tiny decisions could have completely changed everything.
Yeah, I agree.
And that was one of the decisions that the Bengals made the right one, was picking Chase over Sewell. Because they would have not made the Super Bowl with Penei Sewell. They would not have made the Super Bowl for that. Yeah, T. Brookie says, Frank Ragnow retired. I still would have taken 7 years of Frank Ragnow.
Yeah, you wouldn't have had Ted Karras out of that, but
that's okay. I love Ted Karras. He could have played guard. But we wouldn't have had Billy Price. We would have had Trey Hopkins as well. Let's go back into, I guess, a long stretch of time. What if Marvin Lewis would have been fired earlier? You remember that year? What was it like?
2010, after the 2010 season.
There were a couple of periods where it sounded like it was going to happen. And it seemingly never did. So let's just say, for the sake of conversation, one of those times he does get fired. Let's say 2010, prior to the Andy Dalton run. Does that change?
2011 NFL coaching carousel. Let's see who all got hired that year. Riverboat Ron Rivera. Brought his team to a Super Bowl. Leslie Frazier, which probably would have been the favorite because he did have a connection with the team.
He did.
I don't think that would have ended up going very well. Jason Garrett, he wouldn't have. He was a Cowboys all the way. John Fox going to the Bears, I believe, or no, going to the Broncos. John Fox.
Yep.
Pat Shermer. Oh God, nope. And that is it. Oh, Jim Harbaugh.
I could imagine Harbaugh being a guy that would have.
There's no way Harbaugh would have.
No. But let's just say Ron Rivera, just for the sake of conversation. What happens in that? Let's just even say anybody else is the head coach other than Marvin Lewis during that run there where they lost all the playoff games. What changes?
I don't know if they even make the playoffs.
So okay? No, and I'm not.
I really don't think they, because because you remember 2011, I think, was the season where they started letting Marvin have more control with the roster of the team, with the coaching staff that he had. As soon as they re-upped him in 2011, you potentially had the best coordinator duo, at least during our period of fandom, with Jay Gruden as the offensive coordinator, and then obviously Mike Zimmer was retained as the defensive coordinator. You saw probably the best stretch of Bengals defense that we've ever seen from the team, at least at least in the modern, within the past 20, 30 years. Who knows? They might not even make the playoffs. If that's the case, who knows? Maybe Carson's retained because he likes the coach that they put in place there. It's just it's a big game of who knows with that part.
Let's take you to 2017, April of 2017. What if the Bengals draft Patrick? What if the Bengals draft Patrick Mahomes instead of John Ross? Again, I don't think that was even on their draft board, really.
No.
But that's what this conversation is. We're supposed to be talking about what ifs. Okay, what if?
Yeah.
Is Patrick Mahomes regarded as one of the best quarterbacks of this era if he was a Cincinnati Bengal at that point?
I don't know, because how much of Patrick Mahomes is Andy Reid? How much is that Andy Reid is one of the best play callers of all time, is obviously a great leader of team culture. He sat behind one of the best veteran pro QBs, and he didn't light up a stat board, but he was by all means a great employee for an organization and still did well in his career. And Alex Smith, Patrick's on the team. Is he sitting behind Andy for a whole season? There's a good chance he would have been, because Andy, I think Andy and Alex Smith are pretty comparable in that regard.
Yeah.
So, but you don't have the play caller that Andy Reid is. You had Ken Zampese.
Oh God.
At that point in time.
Well, they'd have probably scored a point in the first 2 weeks, right?
Even be in the league right now if he were drafted by the Bengals, because Ken Zampese would have been his offensive coordinator, and he would have ruined him.
I'll tell you what, I don't think I was expecting a Ken Zampese mention on today's show.
To be fair, Ken Zampese did get fired 2 weeks into that season, so it really was Bill Lazor for the most part. But I'm just looking at the wide receiver class from 2017, and it is cheeks. It is not good. Mike Williams, which he's fine. He's okay.
Yeah, fine.
Corey Davis, bust. John Ross, big bust. Zay Jones, a good wide receiver 3/4 for most of his career. You had Juju,
Cooper Kupp.
He would have been selected in the first round. Chris Godwin, your best receivers are third rounders.
Kenny Golladay in the third.
Biggest what if? What if Kenny Golladay signed with the Bengals in the 2021 offseason?
Yeah, they wouldn't have to draft Jamar Chase then. Oh God.
I actually liked Kenny Golladay a lot too. It's crazy how he fell off like that.
Are you ready for at least the last one on my list?
Yeah.
No, you're not. Okay. We're going to get real dark now. What if Joe Burrow gets one more second and completes a touchdown pass to Jamar Chase and the Bengals win the Super Bowl?
The city of Cincinnati would have had a lot of insurance claims. Would have been on fire.
I'm just sitting here, I even have a little bit of tears in my eyes right now, just thinking about one more second.
One more second. Or not even what if Joe Burrow had one more second? What if
Aaron Donald had retired?
What if there wasn't a phantom holding call on the defense, because that was third down and long?
Yep.
The Rams offense couldn't do anything. They got bailed out a lot. They were bailed out on that drive, I think, quite a bit, especially on that holding call.
Yep. But because I remember that they never. Well, for one, honestly, I think as soon as it was over, and I saw the incomplete pass, I think I turned the TV off. I've never seen the celebration. So therefore, the Bengals have never lost that game in my eyes, because I've never seen the end of it. Still happening. It's still happening somewhere. But I don't know that they ever showed the replay, but I remember Jay Morrison on Twitter. Love Jay. Jay, you didn't have to post the damn picture of you see Jamar with his hand up, wide open, and you see Burrow going down in the back, or him throwing it up to Samaje, right? It was a
Yeah.
check down.
Or another what if, like, what if that offense, what if 3/5 of that offensive, what if you didn't have injuries to 3 out of your 5 starters on that offensive line that were beginning that you had to begin the season with? What if you didn't have Isaiah Prince playing right tackle in a Super Bowl game? What if you didn't have Hakeem Adeniji playing? Did he play left tackle?
No, right guard. You had Jonah at left tackle.
Okay,
Didn't you?
Jonah was your only decent offensive lineman on that
you
team.
had Trey Hopkins.
Play?
Yeah, I won that. And then you had because your left guard was none other than Quentin Spain.
Okay, Quentin Spain was one of your other decent offensive linemen. But that was a bad year for Trey Hopkins. That was the year that Trey Hopkins lost his job and we got Ted Karras. But I think Trey was also battling injuries all season, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, because it went Jonah Williams, Quentin Spain, Trey Hopkins, Hakeem Adeniji, Isaiah Prince.
Oh God,
was that offense?
Yeah, what if Riley Reif was still the tackle of during that Super Bowl? Like Aaron Donald's still probably eating.
Yeah, because I mean, but then again, you could put, insert amazing player and there, and Aaron Donald's going to eat because he's arguably the greatest interior defensive lineman of all time.
Yes,
and that was his moment where he was a Hall of Famer, but now I'm surprised they didn't give him the bust already. After winning the Super Bowl with that, but because then you also have to wonder is, how does that change 2022? Of just that momentum of everything filing over with that. Does free agency change at all?
Does Joe Burrow get appendicitis if he won the Super Bowl?
Probably not. Probably not. It probably wouldn't have happened that way. No. Appendicitis cannot attack Super Bowl winners. That is a actual scientific fact.
We could have gone 16-0 or 17-0 that year.
Yeah. I agree with Tyler, though. You could put Jason Kelce and Zach Martin on a double team, and Aaron Donald would still eat. Yeah, that's probably.
Yeah, I guess there's a difference between eating and absolutely wrecking a game.
Yes,
and I guess that's where I'm going with the latter there more than just Aaron Donald. Is he going to eat? Obviously, Aaron Donald's going to eat. But yeah, I mean, what Aaron Donald did was wreck the entire game.
That moment, though. I just thinking about the what if, because I mean, you just have to think, like you mentioned the insurance claims in Cincinnati. Can you imagine that Super Bowl parade? What that would have been like?
Yeah,
it would have been incredible. It would have been incredible, and it would have been, and I mean, still that month, I don't know that there will ever be a month of sports fandom that will ever top that. Even if the Bengals win the Super Bowl a year, the run that was the most fun I've ever had.
Yeah.
As a sports fan. The Raiders game. I will at least once or twice a month go back and watch the final plays of that game. And still to this day get goosebumps for it.
Yeah.
The Titans game. Just the absurdity of Joe Burrow getting sacked 95 times and them winning. And then down as much as they were against the Chiefs and win in overtime.
Yeah. There was no quit in that team. And I remember you telling me, that Kevin Huber was saying in the locker room interview that this is by far and away the best culture he's ever been a part of in a locker room. And that guy's been on the team for about a decade at that point. Maybe even longer, maybe more like 12 years at that point. And I looked at you and I thought, that's good and all, but this team isn't. I mean, if this team makes it to the playoffs, we'd be lucky to make it to the divisional round. Now, they were very lucky in the case that they got Ryan Tannehill managed to find his way into a 1 seed that year, which. That's I don't know how that happened. Chiefs game, my God. How did they pull that off? That's oh man, just really reliving that's sad that these are the glory days. So didn't win anything. Won an AFC. That's the way we won an AFC championship. That's about it.
They
Won the
can't take that
division.
away from us.
Can't.
They can't take that away from us.
It
And
was-
like Tyler said though here, that Raiders game will always be my favorite moment in Bengals history until they win a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Because seeing that, for us, it was the first ever win. Riley says, Mick cried, I cried. If you weren't crying, you're lying for that. Because it was...
Or you're
incredible.
a Raiders fan. Oh, well, now
Yes.
Raiders fans would have cried too.
Yeah, they would have cried.
In the more
But-
sad way.
Just the pure celebration and just relief. Because I know I told you this, that they could have gone to Nashville and lost by 70, and I'd have been okay.
Yeah.
They got the win. I didn't have to hear about it anymore. We're done. Now we can move on. The Joe Burrow era is officially here. But then when they won, I though, into that game, I was confident. I was really confident going into the Titans game. Now, I didn't think they really had a chance against the Chiefs.
See, I was actually kind of confident going into that because they'd already done it.
Yeah.
Even though this one would have been in Arrowhead. Yeah.
The what ifs though for that. Did you have any that you wanted to drop in?
The one that I actually thought of right before the show. What if the Bengals did not throw out second contract extensions for Geno Atkins and Carlos Dunlap in 2018? Would you have seen would we have potentially seen a better defensive lineman and edge rusher come across? And I was looking at the draft class and it wasn't great. So, I mean,
No.
It probably did think, so I'm looking at the draft class right now. You had Bradley Chubb. He was a pretty decent edge rusher. He's been pretty good. Vita Vea, he didn't play 3-tech. He's a nose tackle. So I don't know how that would have necessarily translated. Who was the Bengals nose tackle even during 2018? Was it still Domata Peko?
I guess it had to have been, right? Or was, he's now with he's now coaching at Colorado.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's their interior defensive line coach for them. So his last year was in 2016. So the 2018 Bengals.
Who would have been their nose tackle? My God.
Now I got to look here. The 2018 Cincinnati Bengals. We're such good podcast hosts, aren't we? But then again, what other podcast is going to be talking about the interior? So the defensive lineman on that team, Andrew
Michael
Billings.
Johnson.
I guess you had Andrew Billings. I know he was kind of
your nose tackle.
Yep. Remember how hyped we were when they got Andrew Billings?
He wasn't bad though.
He was fine. Is he still in the league?
He also didn't play in 20. Oh, that was 2013.
He is still in the league. Interesting.
Andrew Billings. Yeah, he plays for the Bears or the Raiders.
Yep, you're right. You're the Bears. Yep, you're right.
So you did get a good season out of Geno Atkins in 2018. You got a really good 85 pass rush grade, 64 pressures, 15 win percentage, pass rush win rate. Sam Hubbard, that was the first year of Sam Hubbard. Carl Lawson, before he tore his ACL that year, was having a really good year. Jordan Willis, man, that was a fucking bust of a pick.
There's a good name for you.
Jordan Willis. Yeah.
That's one that I don't know how much of an impact it really would have had. If anything else, I think it's a good thing that they did it because I think they learned a lot of lessons from it.
Yes, and they're about to unlearn those lessons potentially, depending on what happens with the Trey Hendrickson situation. But even if they didn't get a defensive lineman in 2018, said they waited until when they had the horrendous draft pick of not horrendous. It was Jonah, Jonah Williams.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Jonah was fine.
He was fine. I met him at Target. He's cool. But
I'm
looking at other.
Hey, look, there it is.
Yeah, it's me and Jonah Williams.
I love you. You're so stoic in this picture. You trying to look tough? Is that what it is?
An artsy pick.
Artsy, is that what it is?
Yeah, artsy pick. So wait, I'm looking. The 2019 edge rushing class is actually really good. Josh Hines Allen now, Montez Sweat, Richmond, Kentucky native, by the way. I didn't know that. Brian Burns, Cleveland Farrell. That was a bust.
He was the first one taken. Was he not?
Bosa, Nick Bosa.
Oh, okay.
So those were edge rushers. Defensive lineman Quentin Williams, Ed Oliver. Who?
He was the one that I think I wanted that year. Yeah.
Rashawn Gary. I would have been happy with Rashawn Gary too. Christian Wilkins, Dexter Lawrence. Oh yeah, this was just the season of this was the draft of all of those Clemson. Yeah, all those Clemson defensive linemen that were first round talents.
But when we ask all these questions, though, it's amazing though that like you could go all the way back to Carson Palmer in 2005. And let's say he doesn't get hurt. Like there is a pathway to say the Bengals don't have Joe Burrow as their quarterback. But just because of that one moment. Because you don't know what happens.
Well, so Carson's last year was in, I believe, 2017. So you're potentially looking at a quarterback solution, say, in 2018. So then we'd have Baker.
Yeah. Which you would have been happy with.
Or Lamar. Or Sam Darnold. Could have been Sam Darnold.
And maybe, let's say the Bengals go on a run to the AFC Championship in 2015, that 2015 season. Does that change the Andy Dalton perception and so on? It's just, I love all of these different questions. We may have never had the Ryan Finley experience. We may have never had the Ryan Finley experience. Such a shame. Do you have any other what ifs?
No.
I think this was a fun exercise.
I don't have any more.
This was a fun. I mean, it was a little depressing.
It was
a little depressing.
People could say the entire 2024 season was an entire season of what ifs. What if Tanner Hudson didn't fumble the ball?
Yep.
What if Evan McPherson could have made just one of those field goals?
Yep.
What else is there?
What if they called the penalty on the 2-point conversion, the 3 penalties on Joe Burrow on the 2-point conversion, he'd have gotten another chance?
Or if they called the face mask.
Mm-hmm.
They could have won the division. They could have made it pretty far in the playoffs.
Because I mean, that's the one thing about Zach Taylor teams. Do they start awful? Yup. But boy, do they finish. It's hilarious how opposite Marvin Lewis teams. Like Marvin Lewis, they'd always, at the end of the year, it'd be like, oh, well, I guess Marvin Lewis team would get a little bit hot because they'd always find a way to get to 8-8 or 7-10 and not get a good draft pick.
Well, it depends because that was latter Marvin Lewis, because early Marvin Lewis would have been the difference. Remember, talk about a what if season at week 14 in 2006, the Bengals were coming in hot. I think they were 8-4, 8-5, rattled off 3 straight losses, missed the playoffs. They were a shoo-in for the playoffs in week, early December of that season.
Was that the Brad St. Louis year?
No, I think the Brad St. Louis year was like the year after. I think it was 2007. Which that was a bad defense that the Bengals, they had a terrible defense that year.
Brad St. Louis. There we go. There's another mention that we needed to have. Okay. That'll pretty much wrap us up here for this week's edition of the show. We'll be back next week for the next week's edition. We're gonna have some good stuff planned here over the summer to kind of keep the content rolling. We're gonna look into some past draft classes, and we'll also have coming up at some point in the next couple of weeks. We'll have another Jungle Juice Joust, which if you missed that last year, go back and watch that on our YouTube channel or on your favorite podcasting platform. It was a fun game, and it'll be fun to do it again this year. Any parting thoughts?
No. Have a good rest of your week, everyone. Have a good weekend. I think it's supposed to rain, so stay dry. And hopefully it's not as hot. It's been hot out the past few days.
It has been. I can also give a shout out. Tomorrow's my mom's birthday, so happy birthday to my mom.
Happy birthday, Adele.
She turns 30 tomorrow. So congratulations.
She
Happy
turns
birthday.
30. Happy
Mhm.
30th birthday, Adele.
Yes. Happy birthday to my mom. I know I'll be seeing her this weekend. So until next time for the next week's edition of Jungle Juice, Mick Kude.
Who day?